Welcome to a very special edition of the Piano Men with Stanley Carr. We've got two guests with me in the studio this evening. Joining me right now are Peter Gallinari and Clair Cunningham. Peter has been playing keyboard since the age of 8 and now resides in Nashville, Tennessee. In the mid-'80s, Peter was signed with the producer of Kool The Gang for 3 years when he wrote, sang, and performed with a team of new upcoming artists. 4 new upcoming artists, I should say. In 1991, Peter met the famous Angel Wallenda of the world-renowned Flying Wallendas. Finding out that Angel was diagnosed with cancer, he wrote the song Life on the Wire, which was used in a TV feature on ABC about Angel's life story. The song became Angel's theme song for her shows before her unfortunate passing. He's also played alongside artists from popular bands such as Toto, Guns N' Roses, and Kiss. Clair is a musician from Ireland and got started playing music at 6. She began her training with classical music and later moved into rock. She got her bachelor's degree studying music technology in Wales. She released her first EP in 2016 and also lives in Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hey, how you doing?
Hello.
Claire, you're killing me here with all this education.
Oh my God.
Oh, God.
Makes me sound more educated.
You're so much smarter than me.
No. You're more talented.
No, I don't think so. That's great. Thank you.
Well, welcome to both of you to the show. We really appreciate having you on here. So we're going to start with you, Peter. Tell me about your upbringing. Where did you grow up as a kid?
I'm a Brooklyn boy.
Okay.
Born and raised in Brooklyn, Bensonhurst, and Bay Ridge. If the old-time people still remember the show Welcome Back, Kotter, well, that high school in the beginning, that's my high school in Brooklyn. And we had those people in my high school, just like the show. So it's kind of cool. I actually watched them. I watched them make Saturday Night Fever, The French Connection, right down the street from where I lived.
John Travolta?
Yeah, the whole thing. It was really cool. But I was young then. I was younger, much younger. But that was cool. It was a really good time. So Brooklyn was good. It was a good upbringing. It thickens your skin. You're not very gullible as you get older, and it was a good way of being brought up as a kid. It really was.
It's really nice to hear. What made you decide to become a keyboardist?
At the age of around 7 years old, I had a little keyboard that was 11 keys, and I used to sit there and play it with one finger. And I used to listen to music on the radio. I used to try to mimic at least the melody of the song. And I was like 7, just turning 8 when I was doing that. But I never changed instruments. You know, these kids nowadays go, I want to play guitar, I want to play drums, I want to play bass. The parents go crazy, you know, and which is cool. I think it's fine until the kid finds out what they really want to do. So this was good. So I stayed with keyboards.
And I also read a little bit about you. You also played organ as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I'm endorsed, or I belong to the Ham family, so the Hammond family. Mm-hmm. So I've been part of that family for years now, about 10 years, and we do some special events. And because of that, we get opportunities to really hang with some really cool people during these events. But it's all Hammond people, and Hammond is the organ. Yes.
That's really cool. So who are some of your earliest influences as a musician? What got you really inspired by music?
You know, it's funny. Even though I'm a rock guy, Jim Croce actually inspired me because of his writing. Oh. And I like the idea that he actually wrote songs that told a story, and you could hear all the words. So it was really kind of cool listening to his songs. Operator, there you go. Yeah, sure. Those are all great songs. And he always had a story behind it and a meaning for it, you know, and they were life stories. So I really enjoyed Jim Croce. And then as years went on, my rock years, I was a big Styx fan. Mm-hmm. I love Styx. I happen to sound like Dennis. I don't know if that was a good or bad thing in my life. But for 30-something years, I've always sounded like him no matter where I go if I sing one of his songs. So
Styx is some pretty good music.
Yeah, no, I love the other stuff. I mean, I'm a Zeppelin fan, and I'm a Deep Purple fan, and people like that.
So hard rock was your thing?
Yeah, not metal rock, but definitely real rock. You know.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You began your professional career in the mid-'80s working with the producer of Kool The Gang. Yeah. Can you tell me what that experience was like?
Some of it was great and some of it was horrible. It was really my way of learning about the business. So part of it I was taken for a ride a little bit. I didn't know that much about the business. I was in my early 30s, and I knew what I wanted to do, But I do have to respect the fact that this person took me under his wings, and he was one of the big producers of Kool The Gang through the 70s. And I got to work like 3 years with this person. I could mention Tony Fowler. He was really, really great to me. And Tony would bring me on board to all these projects, people from Europe and all over. And I did a lot of keyboard work and programming. We actually programmed the sounds. They weren't just bought. So I used to make sounds up. And what was really cool is that sound was the only sound on that record. Nobody had it, right? So I used to do a lot of those kind of things for years.
So kind of not to veer far off, I know a lot of that music, that late 70s, early 80s time frame that you're talking about, had a lot of that production.
Oh, yeah.
You were mentioning Styx, Deep Purple. Another band that kind of springs to mind a little bit is Foreigner. They also did a little bit of that stuff, too.
Yeah, Foreigner, Genesis, Yes. All those groups are really paramount in my upbringing that I really enjoyed.
Prog rock.
Oh, yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the song we just heard, a little bit of Life on the Wire, you got to meet Angela Wallenda in 1991 of the world-renowned Flying Wallendas. Finding out that she was diagnosed with cancer, you wrote the song Life on the Wire that was eventually used in a TV feature on ABC about Angel's life story. Do you have any anecdotes about Angel that you'd like to share?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually knew Angel when she was 5 years old, but never knew that this was the person. Like 20 years later. It ended up being that Angel was a foster child of my uncle's that I used to play with. And I remember playing with her all the time. And then years later, I used to work for Reader's Digest. And Reader's Digest did a story about the Wallendas and Angel because of her upbringing. And long story short, because I don't want to dwell on it, but I got to meet her through my uncle. He brought her to my house. Wow. So now she's a woman who has half a leg amputated because she had cancer. They had to amputate the lower part of her leg. And she was told she'll never walk the wire again. Talk about strength. This woman went on the wire and said, well, basically, the hell with you. I'm going to walk the wire. And she walked it with no net, this wire. And so I knew about her story. She ended up coming down to my studio room, listening to my uncle bragged about me all the time. I was like, you should have been my manager, I said. And he was so sweet. But I came down, I played music for her, and I probably played 2 hours straight of music. All she wanted to do was hear the music. And I was, and she's such a positive person. Well, she actually steered me in the right direction with music. She's the one who said to me in 95, this is 91, 92, this is way before I started playing with anybody well-known. I was a local musician. She said, you're going to become famous. I went, no, I'm not. I'm already like, how old are I? I'm not becoming famous. She said, and it was funny that her song ended up getting on her special on TV, but she made that happen intentionally. She was so sly, and she made that happen. And when I wrote the song for her, she was really taken by it. And the one thing I do remember that she told me that was really weird, she says, I was really touched by this. She said, she gave me a plaque. She came over my house, and you'll have to see this when you come over my house next time. She gave me this plaque. It was an etching of her walking on the wire with this real religious saying, and she didn't tell me anything about it. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to say. Thank you. So she ended up giving me the plaque, and I called her the next day to thank her. She said, well, I didn't want to tell you, but I've only handed this plaque to 7 people in the world. Now, she's been on TV and on Good Morning America, the whole thing. Today Show, People Magazine. And she's all over these magazines. I said, well, that's kind of nice. I said, wow, I didn't know what to say. She says, well, the other part about it, I've only given this to this one other musician who was my best friend. I said, well, who was that? She says, Michael Jackson. So I'm going, oh, please don't compare me to Michael Jackson. I said, do I buy a glove now? I didn't know what to do. I was like, I had a tear in my eye. I went, oh, my God. And she yelled at me on the phone. She said, you had to stop thinking about yourself like that. She says, and think the other way. And it really freaked me out, but she kept me going because at that point in my life, I almost gave up playing because I was going to concerts, watching concerts, coming home crying, saying, how come I'm not? And by that time, I'm already in my 40s. This is never happening. And sure enough, 5 years from that day that she almost passed away, I got a phone call to start playing with all these people. So very, very strange. So I really credit her. Her name was Angel Wallenda, and the song I put Life on the Wire. about her. And it's like I always think she's watching over me constantly. So really sweet.
That's a very touching story.
Yeah, it's great.
So we're going to kind of segue here and play a little bit of this selection called The Journey. This was a, tell me a little bit about this
So The
song.
Journey was just a heart-wrenching thing, a point in my time, in my life. Just not to look, sorry, just a couple of years ago, I actually put this together and finished it up recently. It was just tons of emotions in that one song. And I called The Journey because it's all the ups and downs, and you hear it in the music.
Sure.
So.
All right, so we're going to play The Journey. This is the Piano Men with Stanley Carr. All right, that's a pretty neat little track there. Heard a little bit of that electronic sound. You're listening to the Piano Men with Stanley Carr. We're here with Peter Gallinari and Clair Cunningham. We're going to speak with Clair here. Tell me a little bit about how you got started in the music business.
Like Peter, I think I was very young. I was about 6, I think, when, school just needed a singer for a certain church event, and I got Simmons. And then I actually I started on keyboard and turned into piano myself and did classical right up until the age of about 16 when I took over guitar and self-taught guitar. But I was always a singer-songwriter underneath it all. So music has always just been the only kind of passion I had.
It's like a language.
Right. It's just, and when you have that, you have it in your bones or you don't. And I definitely did. It was just all I ever wanted to do. I knew it. Even when I was like 3, I think somebody said, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, a rock star. I mean,
Yes.
Good
girl.
Yes. Yeah, of course, Claire, you'll be a rock star.
So who are some of the artists you look to for inspiration?
I was brought up a lot on, obviously I'm Irish, so we have a lot of Irish music, like, the Cranberries, like Dolores O'Riordan, Thin Lizzy, but, things like AC/DC, T-Rex, Guns N' Roses, like we had a lot of heavy, like classic rock in Ireland is as big as our, and we have a country scene, like Garth Brooks was actually, like somebody I loved, called my first hamster Garth. But Alanis Morissette as well.
Yeah.
She was my first cassette tape. I am that old.
And In My Pocket. And
Yeah, man. I mean, she was 19 when she
Yeah.
had that. That was like a crazy record and still selling copies today. Like so.
Sure. So you eventually started up your own business and became a singer. You also started a classic rock band called Smokin' Aces, which was huge in Europe. What can you tell me about that time in your career?
Well, so Smokin' Aces, it was actually Thunder Mother that was the huge one.
Okay.
That was an all-female classic rock thing that I got into. I was headhunted on YouTube. Smokin' Aces was actually really cool 70s kind of, rock lineup that I had. That was when I was in Britain. And then, through being in that band, I got headhunted on YouTube and ended up touring all over Europe with the girls in Thunder Mother.
So why and when, I should say, did you decide to go solo and eventually break off?
Yeah, I kind of always had a solo career underneath everything that I ever did, but I never took off until I left that band in 2017. And then I made my kind of way over here to America.
What made you decide that America was the right choice?
It was always the choice.
Right.
It's always been there. It's always been my dream. It has. And honestly, by way of default, I ended up having to go to Sweden to be in that band. So I kind of always had kind of thought that I'd be in America. So that kind of detracted away from that, in its way, but it was meant to be. And then I was able to make headway and get over here.
And you're here in Nashville.
Yeah.
Yes,
Could think of a better place to be.
Yeah.
Music City. And you were talking about Garth Brooks. Are you a fan of country? Do you like a lot of the...
Don't get me wrong. I think country music is great. It tells a lot of stories, which is what I've been brought up on, songs that actually speak from the heart and actually tell a story. I think music is art, and once it emotionally touches you, I think it doesn't matter really the style. I'm a big fan of just, putting your heart and soul into something. So whether it be pop or blues or soul or jazz, like I'm just a lover of music and art. So, yeah.
So how did the both of you get to meet each other? Tell me about how you both met in the song that we're about to premiere on Piano Men tonight. Who does what in the collaboration process?
Well, first she found me on the street somewhere.
Yeah, he was
hanging out.
busking.
I had my thumb out. I said, I'm all alone. I don't know what to do out here. But we actually met through other resources, other people, and we just happened to be at the same venue at the same time.
Okay.
And,
not long ago, right?
No. We just started talking, and she said, "You really talk funny, Pete. You know." I said, "Hey, I'm sure." I said, "Hey, you know what you want me to do?" So I said, "Like I totally understand you. You know what I mean? Forget it." So we hit it off really well. We really got along really well, and very quick and easy.
Yeah.
And I said, "Do you collaborate?" She's like, "Yeah." Well, what the hell, you know?
Time.
So I was working on a song that I had wrote the music for, and a ballad. I write pretty songs. A crazy rocker writes pretty songs.
Amazing ones.
But I write pretty songs, and I had the verse done for a male part. I really wanted to turn it into a duet. And she's like, "I like duets." So I said, "Good." I said, "Come on over." And she did. And she ended up writing the verse that she's singing. She wrote that verse. I didn't write it because I couldn't figure out what's right for a girl.
Yeah. The female
The
perspective.
verse is, I told you, that was the first. I said, "I can't do it." So,
Yeah.
There's always something about that song structure, like verse, chorus,
Yeah.
bridge.
sure.
Is there ever like a time where you're like, I don't know what to do, or I don't care, or do you just kind of write as you go along, or?
Yeah, it's a feel thing. I mean, there's stuff that I don't follow the same format. A, B, A, B, C.
Sure.
I don't. It's whatever. I think the song, you heard the journey. That's like all over. There's different modes of that
Sure.
song, not a verse chorus, right? So there's different parts. This being a power type, it's going to end up being a power ballad. Right now, what you're going to hear is a very rough demo just in my house and my studio, and we just worked out ideas. So what you're hearing are the ideas. What you're not going to hear, and maybe intentional right now, we didn't put the very ending of the song on there. So we don't know how the song's going to turn out, good or bad for this couple or whatever that the song's about. And so maybe the audience could give, their perspective on,
Kind of like a movie trailer.
I was going to say, but
That's right.
could almost have two
We
endings.
could have two endings, and we might have two titles. We don't even know yet, so we'll see.
So for the listener listening at home, think very carefully and think about what you would prefer to hear as far as an ending goes, and we'll let them know, let Peter and Claire know what you think, and give your opinion on how you think the song should end. So tell me a little bit about what the song currently is called.
It's called, well, we were both talking. There's two titles right now. It's "I Sleep Alone," is what we kept on saying the other night.
Right.
I originally titled it "I Think of You." I was just very confused. So I don't really, so we don't know at this point.
Okay.
But so we'll see.
Right now, this song is called "I Think of You," and we're gonna premiere it right here on the Piano Men. Here we go. Okay, it's very pretty.
Yeah, thanks.
Ooh, my mic. Here we go. Happens sometimes. The mic kind of cuts out.
Can't handle.
But you're listening to the Piano Men with Stanley Carr. We're talking with Peter Gallinari and Clair Cunningham. We just heard "I Think of You." That's the current title of the song.
Maybe. "I Sleep Alone" is what the end. Well, right now that's what's happening. But
So when you're making these demos, tell me a little bit about the process of coming up with these songs.
it's funny. I
and
get
recording.
triggered two different ways. I get triggered by an event, number one, obviously. I get triggered by meeting someone and just talking, and you just get a vibe. I get triggered by a sound. Being a keyboard player is kind of cool because I have probably 5 billion sounds in my studio room. So as soon as I put my hand on the keyboard, I hear something, and that really sparks a feeling for what direction the song might go in.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually lay it down with. I was never a piano player. I started playing piano later on in my life, but I was always a synth player. So I usually lay down a pad sound or a little piano, and lay that track down first by itself, and then I start coming up with lyrics based on whatever emotion at that point in time. So that's how I get started with it, and then it builds from there in layers. I like layering, so you'll hear by one of my other songs, "Layer." I do a lot of layering and orchestration.
Do you have a specific type of software that you like to use when coming up with these songs?
Yeah, so I use a bunch of different stuff. I use a lot of onboard stuff that I already have, well, keyboards. So I use Yamaha keyboards, Roland keyboards, Korg keyboards. I like their sounds. I like the richness of some of them more than others. The Yams have great pianos.
Oh,
But
definitely.
they're great. And I like the Rolands because they're deep in the analog feel. And even Korg has some nice deep strings. I use Arturia. Is a great software, good buddies of mine too, and they have some great sounds, combined sounds, which is nice layering. So I enjoy making things fat after they build on a song.
Me personally, I love the Casio
Sure.
type because it's got all the string and orchestral features on there, just kind of playing with it,
All in one.
Do you have a specific type of keyboard you like to play with? Or?
I actually, well, at home, I think I have a Williamson or something. I have an upright grand back home in Ireland, but obviously I can't take that with me.
Yes, be big.
So yeah, I mean, I'd love to, but and I don't play keys here. It's not what I do anymore. I'm kind of more on guitar now, but I mean, you can't go wrong. The one I have is just a weighted keys, just to give the real feel. I mean, there's nothing better but there's nothing better than an actual grand piano, is there?
Right, no, there isn't at all. Yes.
Well, I know you've got to get going since it's 9:30. Thank you very much for coming on, and you can come back on anytime.
Love to.
Open invitation. And,
I'll bring Peter when we have another song.
There we go. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're gonna segue here. Let's see. We'll play a little bit of "Lives Will Begin." We'll do a little segue here. We'll play that.
That's for the tornado.
Yes,
event,
and we'll talk a little bit about that after we segue here.
Sure.
But you're listening to the Piano Men with Stanley Carr here on Radio Free Nashville. That's just a very sweet song. Very cool. Very cool. You're listening to the Piano Men with Stanley Carr. We're talking with singer-songwriter and keyboardist Peter Gallinari. About a week ago, I was doing my show interviewing Gene Cotton, who's another singer-songwriter here in the greater Nashville area, living in Leapers Fork. I did my phone interview with him, and I get home, and I knew there was going to be some bad weather. And I turn on Channel 4. I'm watching Jimmy Fallon, and it cuts to a shot of the newsroom at the studio. And they're talking about all this bad weather and tornado warnings that are coming through the Middle Tennessee area. What I wasn't sure of necessarily was they were talking about sort of like the west part, Middle Tennessee, like the east part, and Kentucky. That they got a lot of that nasty weather that comes through. We don't really get a lot of that kind of weather here in this part of the region, but I get up in the morning, the early part of the next day, and I hear that not only did a tornado come through here, but it came through a lot of parts of town, like East Nashville, Hermitage, Mount Juliet. All these different communities were affected by at least 2 major storms, major tornadoes. And I'm just going, wow, this is just unbelievable. It's horrible just hearing about it. And you got all these buildings that are knocked down. And tell me a little bit about how you wrote this song here, Lives Will Begin, because this was a pretty deep song here.
Basically, a lot of this was influenced off of our incident that we had in New York years ago, the Sandy, big storm.
Mm-hmm.
And it wiped out a lot of areas of Connecticut and New York. And we went through the same type of things, and it was very widespread because it crossed multiple states.
Sure.
Like this, too. And it took out a lot of families. And it's an emotional thing that you have to deal with. And my only way of dealing with things like this is by reason of sitting down and just expressing it in music. It's just a little bit easier. It helps relax me a little more and to get my emotions out with a few tears. But it's my way of also giving back to the community. Some people do it monetarily. Some people do it helping, volunteering to help people. And my way has always been is, to write something that people can live with and maybe help them deal with the situation and lift up at the end. There's a lift, a positive side of it, not just a negative part of what happened.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How do you we've not only got this tornado, but we've also got all these other situations with the coronavirus and the upcoming election and things like that. How do you feel about what's going on in the world?
Well, it's crazy. If you go out to our website, you'll see I've written a bunch of different songs for different reasons. When they had the Virginia Tech shooting, when those college kids were shot and killed, I wrote a song for that. That senator in Arizona who was shot for no reason,
Sure.
I wrote a song for that. The whole Oklahoma disaster with the bombing and all those children died, those babies. I lost it at that point. So the world it's spinning in different directions, and I don't know if it's any worse now than it was probably 50, 100 years ago. It's just that we have social media, and because of social media, things were exploited, just like the coronavirus, right?
Yeah.
We've had viruses for the past 50 years.
Sure.
That was going to kill everybody in the world, right? But it wasn't exploited, obviously, as much as it is now, and so easily. So I think things are probably not as much different as it was years ago. I think it's just more exploited out there.
And the media's kind of
always
brought fear and anxiety.
And we don't need that, right?
Yes.
We're trying to stay on the positive side of things. I'm not saying don't take precautions or whatever you do when you walk the streets at night and you're not in a great neighborhood. Yes, I'm born and raised in Brooklyn, in New York. So you learn how to be self-conscious of what your surroundings are. And it's the same thing with your health. If you don't walk into a room with 50 people who are sneezing their head off and, their nose is running and, and they're going to shake your hand and give you a hug and a kiss. I mean, that might not be too favorable in any situation, right? So, but more people are dying of the flu right now than they are of anything else. So I think, yes, you need to take precautions. I'm not saying to ignore it, but we need to stay on the positive side.
Absolutely. So in the early 2000s, you started working with musician Richie Scarlett and eventually moved here to Nashville. Tell me about your time working with Richie and why did you decide to come to Nashville?
Richie is the guy who found me 20 years ago. He came to my house. I was in a business suit, and Richie was long hair, dark black hair, eyeliner, dressed in leather and jewelry. And he opened the door and looked at me and was like, "What am I coming here to see you for?" And somebody said for him to come meet me. And it ended up, he heard me play some music in my studio room, and he liked it, and we ended up becoming brothers after that. If it wasn't for Richie, he really put me on track to play with people that I've only dreamt even meeting. Now I'm on stage with them. And it just freaked me out, surreal, because I was already 44 years old. I wasn't 20 years old. So never give up your dreams, people, So you never know what's going to happen and when and why. My timing wasn't when I was 20. My timing was when I was older and more mature. And I don't smoke, do drugs, or drink. My dad was a cop that might have helped a little bit. But my mom was Italian, like me. We're Italian. I was more afraid of my mom than I was my dad. So I was a pretty straight-laced guy.
Right now I'm going to throw out some names of some artists you've worked with. If you can, tell me a little bit about what it was like to work with each of these. We'll start off with Ace Frehley of Kiss.
That's because of Richie Scarlett. So Richie had a great relationship with Ace Frehley. Richie played with Ace Frehley Comets all those years. He toured with him all over the world. So he's known the band forever. And because of Richie, I got to be hanging out with Ace, which is really sweet. So I used to go to Ace's house. We used to hang out and play. And then Ace was on the same records I was. We played together on the Scarlett Records CDs. And so that was my good enlightening with hanging with those guys, and getting to meet Ace and really getting to know him through Richie Scarlett, which is really great. So that's fun times.
Larry Hoppin of Orleans?
That happened because I was doing a benefit we did every year. We called it Rock for Christmas, and we toured all the different cities, the Northeast cities, for all those years, for many years. And Larry Hoppin was one of the players, along with myself. I played keys. he played guitar, and we had some great drummers and bass players. And we did this for years, and Larry obviously was from Orleans, still the one and all that. And we lost Larry a few years ago. He had, he lost his life, and it wasn't a sweet way either. But it was a great person, and I liked Larry a lot. It was just really great to be around, and he was a lot of fun on the Christmas tours. A lot of fun.
Fergie Frederickson of Toto.
So Fergie, it ended up that I got a phone call one day. I'm sitting home, and I get a phone call from my buddy saying, you need to get down to New York City tomorrow night. I said, for what? He says, well, they want you to play with Fergie doing Toto songs. And I'm like, oh, my God. I said, what songs? He said, well, Africa and Hold the Line and Rosanna. I said, well, those aren't too easy. They use 2 keyboard players, and I was freaking out. So I ended up going down. I had 4 keyboards with me to play all these songs. And we did it, and it was really great to hang and get to know Fergie for years, who he just recently passed away about a year ago.
Joe Buckard of Blue Oyster Cult.
Oh, Joe Bouchard. So Joe was with Blue. Well, he's a founding member, him and his brother.
Ah.
And in fact, I found a video out there of me, Joe Bouchard, Dennis Dunaway from Alice Cooper, the original bass player. School's Out. He's the guy wrote. He's the guy, and Richie Scarlett and myself playing in Millbrook, New York, at a small little town, in this pub, this wine and beer pub, and I found an old video just recently of us doing a show in there, which was really kind of amazing. I've known Joe for years, over 20 years myself, so we used to do a lot of gigs around the city with Joe, and he always sat in with us and played.
And last but not least, Anton Figg of Late Night with David Letterman.
Yeah, so again, through Richie Scarlett, I got to meet Anton, and then Anton's on a few of Richie Scarlett's CDs. So we did a lot of session work together. And amazing drummer. Anton would walk into the studio and do a take, and that was the take. It was sickening. It's like I had to go over my takes over and over and over again. And Anton, totally amazing. What a sweet guy. When I first met him, we were hanging down in New York City, and we were hanging out at a pub. And he would say, he's from South Africa originally, and he did his studying in Boston, Berkeley. And he said to me, Peter, I walked down from my house, my apartment in New York City, 17 minutes, and I go to the Ed Sullivan Theater. I play for 1 hour and 5 minutes, and then I walk to the pub where we are today. I have a bunch of drinks, we eat, and we party, and then I walk 17 minutes home for 24 years. What a gig.
Wow.
What a gig. But a super nice guy. Super nice guy. And I'll mention Leslie West real quick. So my Leslie West, Mississippi Queen, I got a chance to actually do a whole mini tour with him, which was great. And that's through Richie. But really what happened there real quick is I get a phone call about 1 in the afternoon, and whenever they played the East Coast, me and Richie Scott, I would take Richie to the show instead of him sitting on the tour bus. He said, I want to drive with you and hang out, let's just go together. I said, yeah. So I'm ready to go down that day. Excuse me. And Richard calls me up early in the morning. He said, by the way, he says, Leslie said for you to bring your Hammond organ. And I'm going, what? So you got to meet Leslie, because Leslie's a character. So out of the blue, he wanted to play these 3 songs that he always loved. And, and so I knew them, thank God. And I went down, and at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they set up all the equipment, and they were doing a rehearsal. So I get on stage, and I play the song. So we get done, and I walk off stage. I didn't know what was going on. So he's walking off the stage, and he goes, hey, Pete, by the way, he goes, that's how Leslie talks. Yeah. He said, by the way, Pete, you're out of the band. I said, Leslie, I was never in the band. So he goes, ha, be here at 10 o'clock. We're doing a show. So I end up doing the show, and I figured that was it. And they had like a little meeting. I'm in the dressing room by myself. And they come down smiling, and they go, play the rest of the shows for us, the rest of the talk shows. I'm like, okay. And, I mean, so for me, watching these guys, and these are Hall of Famers, and here I am on stage. It's like Leslie West, Corky Lang, and Peter Gallinari. It's like crazy. And the same thing in New York City when I played with Anton. I had Anton Figg on drums, Bumblefoot from Guns N' Roses, and I had Kenny Aronson, who was a bass player for Bob Dylan and all these famous groups. Yeah. And me. And I'm going, I don't know what's going on here. So very, very exciting. Very exciting.
You certainly have worked with a who's who of legends. So next month marks the 25th anniversary of your song "Tell Me Why," which is written about the Oklahoma disaster. What motivated you to write about this?
So real quick on that is that I saw the event on the news, and it was crazy. I come home from a band practice. My family was out of town visiting grandparents. I come home 11 o'clock at night, and I see this fireman carrying this baby, and they're all bloody. And I was like, what is this? And I find out what happened about the bombing. 25 babies. It was like crazy how many people died.
Sure.
And there was a nursery in that building. So I lost it. What did I do? I went into my studio room, and a half hour, I wrote a song called Tell Me Why. Then very next morning, so I'm an Italian boy from Brooklyn, Catholic boy. I used to sing at a Baptist church.
Oh, wow.
A lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so my Baptist minister friend called me up the next morning, and he said to me, he says, did you see what happened? I said, yes. And he said to me, you wrote a song. I said, how do you know? He said, I know you wrote a song. I said, I did. He drove up to my house. I played the song. He starts crying. You have to be at my church on Sunday and sing it. I said, I'll be honest. So my whole family went down. This is before me playing with rock stars, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm the local musician carrying my keyboard. And I get down there, and the church is mobbed. And we're going, what's going on? His church is never mobbed. There was a Daily News was there. I did Channel 5. It was everybody, New York Times.
Yeah.
I'm going, what's going on? He says, everybody's here to see you. I said, me? I said, why? He said, because of your song. I had lunch with my buddy. He's the editor of the news. I'm like, oh, my God. Now I'm shaking. So I play the song. Everybody starts crying. And before you know it, Oklahoma had a copy of the song.
Wow.
I get a personal call from Oklahoma, and they said, we can't believe you did this for us. Nobody wrote a song. I was like, nobody wrote. I'm like, whoa. And then the radio station says, no, And they said, we want to air this live on the air for you, and we want to interview you. I'm like, all right. The next morning, they interview me, and I'm never lost for words. Well, let me tell you something. I was so choked up because they was thanking me.
Mm-hmm.
I said, no, don't thank me. This is just something I had to do. So they aired the song, and they put an 800 number on the newspaper articles of where you could dial it. I still have to try that number out.
Yeah.
But this is in 95 when
Yeah.
the internet just came out.
Yes.
So the social media wasn't there.
No.
So it was all by newspapers. And my mom, Italian mom, gets a phone call from my family out west going, Josephine, you're in a newspaper. And my mom goes, what are you talking about? Yeah, something about Peter. And my dad goes to the store and comes back with a stack of papers. And the second page in is a full-page article about local man writes song for Oklahoma. I'm going, oh, my God. I was like freaking out. So it ended up going all over the place. I mean, I was interviewed by these cable stations, and then they took my song and put it to the video of the actual event. So I lost it. At then I was like, oh, my God. But you just don't know, And my crazy friends kept on asking, how much money did you make? Money? What are you kidding me? I gave it to them.
For free.
It's free, of course. And I told them to use it because people were calling in. They wanted the song,
They're going to you.
Yeah,
Not
well,
going to them.
Yeah, so the station was like, yeah, this is the guy. And so they were giving copies of the song or whatever. But that's what it's all about. The music stuff is being able to give back to people, So it's crazy.
So let's talk about what you're doing right now. I've heard that when Gene Simmons of the band Kiss comes to town, he invites you to play with the band. Do you want to talk about how long your friendship goes back?
Yeah, well, I don't really play with the Kiss guys.
Yes.
I haven't played with them.
Yeah.
No, I played with Ace and did work like that.
Yeah.
Some people think I play with Kiss. I said, nah, I never played with Kiss in general like that. I wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yeah.
But because they don't really have keyboard player in the band.
Right. They're
when
guitar and
they're all guitar heavy. They're not a Gene Simmons is not a keyboard oriented type of sound in band. He was always raw guitar.
Sure.
Ace Ace played with some other stuff, but even Ace never really liked keyboards in the band. But because I was part of the Scarlett band and he played on the Scarlett records, that was my relationship with Ace all those years.
Mm-hmm.
It's through Richie Scarlett.
Okay.
So
very cool. And is this right? You also played with the Rock Residency?
Yeah, so the Rock Residency is a group in Nashville that plays at the Mercy Lounge.
Okay.
And what they do is they invite a lot of the well-known artists to come in and sit in with them to play songs
Sure.
for the night. and they mob the place. They're unbelievable. It's Philip Schaus and Jeremy, and those two guys put this whole thing together for years now. I get invited as a guest player to play keyboards. So when they have songs for keyboards, we did Deep Purple. I said, Pete, come on, you got to do Deep Purple. And we did, some other stuff. So wherever, Foreigner or whatever. So whenever these songs are coming out, they want to do, they'll call me and I come in and I play with those guys. So, they're running the benefit stuff. We'll talk about the tornado stuff in a minute.
Definitely. What advice would you give to somebody that is just breaking in and wants to enter the music business? Because you've got a heck of a story here.
You got to keep at it. I told you I used to come home at nights crying, going, why I'm not up there, and how come somebody else is up there, and not me, right? It's not always a matter of talent. It's a matter of knowing right people and being at the right time. Oprah said it right. And I don't always watch the Oprah show, but one night I did around 2 in the morning on a rerun. And she says, it's not luck. It's opportunity, but be ready for the opportunity. So my thing was, when Richie Scarlett came to my house and knocked on the door, if I wasn't ready at that point, I wouldn't be playing with all these people I just mentioned. He would have just said, nice to meet you, and went home. That same night, he said, I want you on my new CD. And when he went home. And that's how it all started. So you don't know, and I was 44, like I mentioned. I wasn't 20. But I always say, have something in your back pocket. There's only so much room up top. But you don't have to be up top to be well-known in music.
Sure.
There's so many branches you can go into. So you got to keep it in your heart. You got to play.
I mean, there's management. There's
everything.
Agents.
Well, you're writing jingles. You can write. You can do movie scores. You could do. You don't have to be the top guy. Being on stage. Everybody wants to. It's like you want to be noticed. Don't get me wrong. It's really sweet when I walk around and people say, "Hey, Pete. How's it going?" Or "Wow," or "Hello," or these type of things, because they've seen me on stage with well-known people.
Sure. So tell me about the gigs that are coming up that you're involved with.
So right now, I've been working on the project with, I've been working strictly right now on the project with Clair. Yeah. That's really big right now. I play with some local guys that are really fun, Mike Arnold and the Music City Rockers.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they're great. I've been with them for a couple of years. They do shows every 3 or 4 months, and Mike is a great friend, and he's funny, and he's an entertainer. So talented, he's an entertainer. So I do shows with them quite often. Yeah. And I played for a few years with the Rolling Stone tribute band. Yeah. My friend Louis Lee. Yep. For years here. So I was doing that. So I haven't really hooked up right now with a permanent band because I like freelancing. Sure. So I need the time to be open to say, hey, Pete, come on down. Could you do the show and stuff like that? So I'll do that.
And where can people find your music?
So if you go to my website, it's Peter Gallinari Music. It's www.petergallinarimusic.com. So you can find my website out there, and there's a lot of stuff out there right now. And Reverb Nation, it's just Peter Gallinari. There's a lot of music out there of mine.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on here. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to everyone listening, and I hope to have you back on again in the future. Yeah, just real quick, on the 14th, they're doing the benefit for tornadoes. And that's going to be with the Rock and Roll Residency over at the Cannery. And on the 16th, they're doing the Rare Hair concert at Bowie's. So go to those. Those are all for the relief fund. No doubt. Well, this is the Piano Man with Stanley Carr with Peter Gallinari. I'll be back here next week. We're going to close out with Lost in My World.